Creepiest doorbell, camera clips that will make you never open your door again. Part 7. The Unseen Visitor. Emily had always been the curious type, often spending long nights alone in her room, lost in her thoughts or absorbed in books. But as the evening sun began to fade and the world outside quieted down, something changed. It was subtle at first, a feeling she couldn't quite place, but it lingered, a sense of unease that began to creep up her spine, making her feel more alert, more aware of her surroundings. It was a little past 9 p.m. when the first notification came through her phone. Motion detected at your front door. Emily, who had been curled up with a book on her bed, glanced at the message. She wasn't expecting anyone, and it seemed too late for any deliveries. Still, she thought it might be a neighbor or someone passing by. She opened the Ring app, expecting to see nothing more than a shadow or perhaps a stray animal. What she saw, however, made her heart skip a beat. At first, the screen was empty, just the dim porch light casting long shadows across the yard. But as the camera adjusted, the figure of a person appeared, standing motionless by her front door. The person didn't knock, didn't ring the doorbell. There was simply a shadowy figure, standing at the threshold, as if waiting for something. Emily leaned closer to the screen, straining to see more details. The figure was cloaked in darkness, a silhouette obscured by the poor lighting, their features indiscernible. But there was something unnerving about the way they stood perfectly still, not making a sound, not moving. For a few moments, Emily simply stared at the figure. Her breath caught in her throat, her mind racing with questions. Who could it be? What do they want? She wasn't sure why, but a sense of dread settled in her chest. It was as if the stranger was aware of her, as if they were staring back at her through the camera, watching her just as she was watching them. Her fingers hovered over the screen, but she couldn't bring herself to speak through the intercom. What if it was someone dangerous? What if the person outside could hear her? Emily's heartbeat pounded in her ears, drowning out the silence of the house. She could feel the walls closing in around her, her room becoming suffocating. Just as she was about to close the app, the figure moved. The slight movement was enough to send a shiver down her spine. The person shifted slightly, their head turning toward the camera for a split second. Emily's blood ran cold. There was no way they could have known she was watching. The camera's motion sensor was supposed to be discreet. Yet somehow, in that brief moment, Emily felt as if the person had acknowledged her presence. The sensation was enough to make her stomach turn. The figure didn't do anything more. They didn't walk away or approach the door. Instead, they remained still again, just standing there, as if waiting. The unsettling stillness of the scene pressed in on her. The seconds stretched into what felt like hours, and the air in the room felt heavy, charged with an unseen tension. Emily's hand trembled as she set her phone down on the nightstand, not sure what to do next. Should she call the police? But what would she say? How could she explain that someone was just standing at her door, doing nothing? It sounded too strange, too implausible. Then the notification buzzed again, pulling her from her thoughts. Motion detected at your front door. Emily's heart nearly stopped. She grabbed the phone and opened the app again. To her shock, the figure was still there, but now they were closer. The person had moved closer to the door, but they weren't visible on the camera directly. Instead, they had moved to the side, obscured by the shadows of the porch. It was as if they were trying to hide, or at least make themselves less visible. Emily's breath quickened as she tried to get a clearer view. The porch light flickered for a split second. Emily blinked, and when she looked back at the screen, the figure was gone. Her heart began to race. Was it a trick of the camera? A glitch? Had they just left? She stared at the empty porch, the camera feed showing only the vacant yard and the faint light casting long shadows over the grass. But then, in the corner of the screen, something moved again. This time, it wasn't the figure. It was something else, something that made her blood run cold. From the shadows emerged a second figure, much closer to the door. Emily's breath caught in her throat. The new figure wasn't moving. It wasn't walking toward the door or ringing the bell. It was just standing there, as still as the first person had been. But this time, it was positioned right by the porch steps, directly in front of the camera. And, like the first figure, it didn't make a sound. She could feel the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. She didn't know who these people were or what they wanted, but the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. The second figure did not move for what seemed like an eternity. All Emily could hear was the rush of blood in her ears, the frantic beating of her heart. She had to do something, but her body felt frozen in place, her mind racing but unable to act. As she sat there staring at the screen trying to make sense of the situation, another notification flashed across her phone. It was a message from her security system. Motion detected in your hallway. Confused and terrified, Emily glanced toward the hallway. The house was still and quiet. The only sound, the soft rustle of the wind outside. She hadn't heard anything that would explain the alert. Slowly, she stood up, her legs trembling beneath her. As she walked toward the hallway, the room felt colder, the air heavier, as if something had changed. Her phone, still in her hand, buzzed again. This time, it was not a notification from the app. It was a new message, sent directly to her phone. It read, "I know you're in there." The blood drained from her face. The voice in her head screamed at her to run, to lock herself in the bathroom or call the police. But something deep inside told her that she had already waited too long. Whatever had been lurking outside, whatever had been standing on her porch, was now inside the house. The front door was unlocked. Panic surged through her body as the sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoed down the hallway. The house was no longer a sanctuary. It had become a trap, and she was no longer alone. The figure, or figures, from outside had found their way in. And now, they were coming for her. As Emily stood frozen, staring at the shadowy figure outside her door, her mind raced. The silence was suffocating, and the sense of being watched was overwhelming. The figure didn't move, but Emily could feel its presence, lurking just beyond the threshold, waiting for her to make a move. The terror of not knowing who, or what, was standing outside made her question everything about her safety. Who was this mysterious visitor? And why did it feel like the danger was closing in on her? Don't miss Part 8, The Masked Threat, where the tension rises and the true horror begins to unfold. Subscribe now to stay updated and be the first to experience the next thrilling chapter. You won't want to miss what happens next.